Hey, good evening and welcome to Unplugged, the new show on Byline TV, where we do things a little bit differently. I'm Dawn Butler, and after I had so much fun as a guest on the sofa last week with the wonderful Matthew Wright, I decided to pop back and host this week's show. I mean, we had so much fun last week. We spoke about so many different things. We got off to a flying start with the wonderful comedian John Cleese, putting us all through our paces in a lively conversation about woke. While Tom Walker, better known as his TV alter ego, Jonathan Pye, a little bit of a swearer, opened up about postponing his tour due to COVID and the impact of lockdown on his industry. So, what are we going to talk about this week, you ask? Well, as you know, tomorrow's a big day for some. The country's going to the polls in almost everywhere. And, you know, I am Dawn Butler. I am a Labour Member of Parliament, and I am not going to tell anybody watching this show how to vote at all. But it is a very, very important election, and use your vote wisely, and please make sure that you do come out and vote, because you know what can I say about this current lot? Anyway, enough of that. We'll come more to that later on. But who will be joining me on this week's show, and what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about lockdown. You know, all the shops are going to be opened. Everyone's going to be able to go drinking and go shopping. And after more than a year at home, we are ready to venture into new horizons. Are you ready for the 20s? Condom sales have gone through the roof. Or is it going to be the Great Depression? Joining me on the sofa tonight is, this is very, very exciting, UK drag legend Divina De Campo, who was thrust into the global stage when she was a runner-up in last year's RuPaul's Drag Race UK. And here are her iconic moments.
My God, it's DDC on the BBC. I hope we get that season 1 filter.
My name's Divina De Campo. I'm 35 and I'm from Brighouse. 3 words that would sum up my track are classy, sassy, and a little bit brassy.
No more carbonara for you fat bastard.
Divina De Campo.
I am bringing Brighouse on acid.
I just want to play on those tit trumpets.
Bringing a sparkly, mossy, plant-human cross hybrid.
My asteroids are playing up.
I just got that.
School was hard. Like, I got a lot of flack from pretty much everybody in the school. Because of Section 28, it meant that, a lot of teachers felt like they couldn't step in. Whereas now, like having been in schools and worked as a teacher, the kids' attitudes are completely different, completely different.
I had an incident where one girl called me a fucking faggot. You're a fucking queer. She storms out, and everybody else was outraged that she'd said that to me. To say that kids are different now is to completely underestimate where we are.
I mean, that is powerful. That's your lived life experience, and you're going into schools and you're talking to kids and you're talking about Section 28 that lots of kids don't even know about. And I mean, we are going to come back to that, but just so powerful, so much, Davina. But I do need to, I could just talk to you, just being you, but it would be kind of rude because Otto's sitting next to you. So I better introduce him. And sitting next to the wonderful Davina, we also have Otto English, author and Byline Times journalist, known for his wit and insight into a whole range of issues. He knows and has been very close to Jacob Rees-Mogg. I will leave him to discuss that later. And we will also have, joining us down the line is Robert Llewellyn, Red Dwarf actor. Don't we love Red Dwarf? Scraphead Challenge presenter and host of the YouTube series Fully Charged, joining us via video link. And here's his best moments.
It just defies the eye, doesn't it? You think that cannot be moving along because there's water squirting out the back, and it really was. Oh my God! Here it comes.
You can see the flame out of the back. I mean, that afterburn has really worked well.
Oh my God, it's on fire!
Extraordinary collection of sounds. I don't think, I always think, 10 years of scrapping, I've heard everything, but then suddenly you'll hear this noise and you go, what is going to come down the track? I've got no idea.
What's this? It's a banana. It always has been a banana, it always will be a banana. It's a yellow fruit that you unzip and eat the white bits. It's a banana.
Listen, have you got Crichton there with you?
Yeah, what's the prob?
The problem is I've been waiting fully 20 minutes for him in the hangar.
Oh, spin my nipple nuts and send me to Alaska. I'm supposed to take him asteroid spotting. I'll be right down, sir.
You'd better be.
So get involved in the chat. They're coming through nicely. I might read a few of them out, as long as they're not sweary or as long as you're not a troll. And also become a patron. Join up, be a part of the revolution. So we're going to talk about online harassment. And we're going to talk about bots and is the Twitter culture toxic or not? And what are the serious real world issues that is impacted by these abuse online? Now, Divina, you recently wrote in Pink News that essentially people need to give their head a wobble before they start trolling people that appear in TV shows. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous state of affairs that we hold a 22-year-old kid who was on a show to a higher standard than we do the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. To me, that's insane. That we expect, a 22-year-old kid who's, come from a small town in the middle of nowhere, who just happened to end up on a TV show, that they're not going to make any mistakes. When I'm lucky. I grew up without the mobile phone in my hand, without the social media, so I made all of my mistakes without that going online. And now we expect these kids to be perfect because they were on a TV show. We're all human. We all make mistakes. That's just.
But why do you think that is? Why do you think the Prime Minister could be forgiven for giving his lover £126,000 and a £700,000 interest-free loan, which we don't know if he's being paid back? But a 20-something-year-old can't say the wrong thing on TV. Why do you think society's turned so upside down? We're in this Alice in Wonderland world.
Oh, we absolutely are. Yeah, we absolutely are. We're down the rabbit hole, absolutely. But that's because everybody is there's so much antipathy towards politics. And also people just forget that actually politics is everything. So, they go, oh, you're making it political. That's because everything's political.
Oh, yeah.
The clothes that I'm allowed to wear, the way that I'm allowed to behave, what I learn, especially what I learn at the moment, well, they're talking about that we're not allowed to have anti-capitalist literature in schools. Are you insane? Are you absolutely insane? And yet, some kid from Burnley saying something that's mildly offensive on Twitter, who's also a drag queen, is more of a problem than that. So we are absolutely down the rabbit hole. And I think it's because people feel disenfranchised. They don't feel like their involvement in politics makes any difference anyway. So why bother? I can access this person, though. I know I can, and so I'm going to do that because I've seen them on this TV show and I'm really invested in it and I really like that other person, so I'm going to tell them how much I hate them.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? But you're so right. But, people think they can't get involved in politicians, but Otto pretended to be
Oh dear, we're dragging that
Jacob
up, are we?
Rees-Mogg before he was popular. You were responsible.
Well,
for
I have a
occasionally-
neighbour who literally blames me for the rise of Jacob Rees-Mogg. But that was in the good or bad old days, you could say, of Twitter 10 years ago, when it was there were a lot of spoofs going around, and I remember seeing all those spoofs and thinking, well, I could do better than that. And so I created a persona which I thought was obviously comical and nobody would fall for it. And it kind of feeds into all of this, because to my horror, I began to realise that thousands of people actually thought it was Jacob Rees-Mogg. And then not just sort of ordinary people, but politicians. I had media people who believed it was Jacob Rees-Mogg for how many years? I did it for too long, but 2 or 3 years.
You enjoyed it. You got a buzz.
Well, my background was in the theatre, so the thing was, my background was in the theatre, and I kind of created a character, and then I kind of became the character to the point where people I would normally agree with were trolling the fake Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I was
Did you say it was me?
Did you say,
it's me?
In a sort of highfalutin way. How dare you, And I remember the real Jacob Rees-Mogg being as batty and stupid as that man is, and me thinking, he's ruining the act.
That's hilarious.
I felt like writing to him. Can you stop ruining the act?
Can you please stop being the real Jacob Rees-Mogg?
I've taken time, effort and care to create this persona, and you're just being pathetic. Yeah.
And Robert, how are you with your Twitter trolls? Are they good, bad or ugly?
I mean, I think I have had some really nasty comments on Twitter, but not for a long time. And also, I think I'm a very dull target, so I'm not. I don't stand out enough to do it. So the comments we get on our YouTube show, if we get some negative stuff on that, it is generally from it's generally from Americans, very right-wing Trumpy people. And it's because we do a show about electric vehicles and renewable energy, there are some bizarre Trumpy right-wing reactionaries that find that incredibly threatening and annoying, and they are very angry about it and think, it's an electric car, love, don't worry about it. It's not going to do anything. And they just, they go insanely angry. They
do like, they are petrol guzzlers. They do like, there are petrol heads though, aren't they? Anyway, they don't, they do love a bit of petrol, a little bit of gas.
Yeah, they do, but there's also, there is a company called Tesla that's in America that makes amazing electric cars and makes more electric cars than anyone else. And there's a lot of them on the road in America. So not all of them, it's like not every American I've met has a load of guns. 1 or 2 of them do, and it's a bit alarming when you meet someone that you're in America, you meet someone who's lovely, and then you go, you've got all those guns. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But
and then they get angry about electricity. You wonder.
Yeah, I've had one proper it frightened me, but it was in Texas, a death threat, because the man said, "Come and drive your Nissan Leaf, near my my pickup truck, and I'll gun you down," or something. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you don't need to worry, love. I'm not bringing my Nissan Leaf to Texas. Hasn't got the range.
Wow. All I can say is wow. But actually, what is a bot? We kind of hear about bots. You think, what is it? Is a bot a troll? Is a troll a bot? Well, we've got a special guest joining us today, Kyle Taylor. And he's from Facebook Oversight Board. And he's also the author of The Little Black Book on Data and Democracy. And we're going to be reviewing that book a little bit later on. So, Kyle, tell me, what is a bot? And I think I'm going to get a clip to tell us just what a bot is.
So I'm sure we've all heard a lot about bots on social media. These are fake accounts that are used by bad actors, politicians, white supremacist groups, any group that wants to really manipulate the conversation on social media. And so it's not like you just sort of set up a fake account, one person. We're talking about ways to access thousands and thousands of accounts. There are companies, literally companies around the world that do this for politicians and for movements, because the goal is to create enough accounts that you can actually change the conversation. So when you see something trending on Twitter, for example, if enough accounts tweet about something, then it will start to trend. And it gives the idea that this issue is perhaps more popular or more apparent than it actually is. And that's used really to drive people further and further and further into information silos and give them this really acute moment where they think something is true. Because if enough people, if you see it enough on social media in a short period of time, you're likely to believe it. And then even when somebody tries to correct it, it's more difficult to see the correction than it was to see the initial lie. And so it's really about being vigilant as a user on social media and doing what you can to try and spot the bots. So here's a few tips. First, is their account sparse? You know, is there no cover photo, no bio? The second is, do they have way more people that they're following than are following them? Because that usually indicates that they're trying to create a fake aura of personage, of reality, that just isn't there. And the third is, are there huge errors in what they're posting? Grammar errors, spelling errors. It's a really good indicator that this isn't a real person. And so the thing you want to do is never, ever, ever engage with it. Don't reply to their posts, don't like them, don't reshare them, and don't try and contradict them in the moment. Actually, all that does is make the actual content that they're pushing go higher in the algorithms and reach more people. Sneaky, sneaky, right? So the thing to do is just report them. Always, always report them. So identify them, don't engage with them, report them. And that is the way that you can be a bot spotter.
So the thing is this, Trump is a troll. I mean, he was a troll. He's off Twitter now, and I think there's been some news about that. But I mean, he is, you know, the trolling chief, isn't he, Trump, Kyle? So Trump is a troll. Are we going to allow this troll back on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, there was some huge news about Donald Trump today. So Facebook created their own self-funded, self-appointed board called Facebook's Oversight Board to make decisions that basically Facebook didn't have the courage to take. Now, this body's totally funded by the company, and yet Facebook said to them, hey, should we let Donald Trump stay on Facebook? And you're probably thinking, is this the easiest decision ever? Because come on, I mean, this guy has incited racist violence. He has encouraged an attempted coup on the capital of the United States of America, and yet we're all like, should he be allowed? Now, of course, what does the Oversight Board do? Well, they punt the decision. They give it back to Facebook and say, you've got 6 months to decide yourself what's a reasonable punishment for what he did. Now, this is just nonsense, right? In what other context would we be totally fine with a private company setting up their own oversight board to advise them on decisions? Imagine if Big Tobacco was like, hey, we set up a board and we've asked them, should we sell cigarettes to kids? Like, of course not, right? But in this context, we're like sort of totally fine with it. And it's extremely dangerous, Dom, because what it does is it sets this odd precedent, right? The idea that we shouldn't be looking to governments for rules and laws. We should be looking to private companies' own boards they've set up as PR stunts, effectively. So it's sort of like it's a big day, but also sort of a dark day. And of course, they're spinning it, they're spinning it, they're spinning it. But you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, like, are these companies themselves bots? Like, they're just gaslighting us endlessly.
Sounds a bit like the government, to be honest, Carl. But I hear you. So Kyle, we're going to play a little game.
We're going to play a game!
We're going to play a game.
All right, is everybody ready?
Yeah, let's do this. Bot or not?
Bot or not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read something that was tweeted, and I'm going to ask you whether you think it's a bot or a real person. Okay, so first one. I can take sick pay whenever I want. Really don't see the need for a union. They've taken good care of me. This is Dave Amazon Packer at Amazon Packer 776. Bot or real person?
Bot.
Bot, Davina? Bot.
Not a bot, not a very smart person.
Bot. Okay, next one. Number 2. We the people do not want constant criticism of our government who are doing their very beat in a very difficult global emergency.
Bot. Do you think that's a person? Robert says that's a, I mean.
Bot.
I think it might be a person.
I hope it's a bot.
Real person.
I was going to say, can we hear it again?
Sure, yeah.
Just for a laugh.
You just want... Let me put the emphasis on the right place. Okay. We the people do not want constant criticism of our government who are doing their very beat in a very difficult global emergency.
Yeah, I think it's real.
Robert, you said real person, didn't you?
I thought real person. Just because
a bot, real.
I'm saying
done.
bot.
2 bots and a real. This is from This is from Proud Patriot Fighter 221 at Boris Rules 66849 bot.
Oh,
what do we have in there? We have a spelling mistake. We have random numbers and we have nonsense. All right, number 3. You ready?
But nonsense isn't always the key, though, to spotting a bot.
To be fair, you know, let's keep playing, Don. Keep playing, Don.
Anyway.
Okay, and that's actually part of the thing, right? Is like sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's a bot or a person because we've lowered. Okay, so third one. The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make the U.S. manufacturing non-competitive.
That was Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, yes. I was going to.
Real Donald Trump. But let me do it again. Okay.
The
concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make the U.S. manufacturing non-competitive. Okay, that's a real person, but it sounds like a bot. All right, number 4. Ooh. Okay, number 4.
Go on.
Fat women are complaining about a fat tax, forcing them to pay extra for clothes because they're a larger size. Surely, if you can afford all that extra food, you can afford a few quid more for your clothes.
What does Robert say? Robert, what?
I am actually going to go for human being with that because it's so specific and very freakishly weird.
I think I remember reading this. I think there's a person too.
I think it's a real person.
It feels like a real person, doesn't it?
Real person. That was Julia Hartley Brewer.
Bot. Oh my God, troll.
All right, I got one more for you, number 5, on this week's edition of Spot the Bots. So far, you're doing okay, everyone, but try a little harder. Okay. Let's show our support for Boris by writing, I support Boris 100% on all mainstream media. It will drive retainers crazy.
Retainers?
Robert's killing himself laughing. Robert,
I think I remember this as well. I think I remember.
If that's a person, Robert, is that a bot or a person?
Got no idea. I mean, because if bots do deliberate spelling mistakes, then or spelling errors, it could be one. But it's just no. I'm going to say bot because I think it's too obvious. Because it just gets a laugh. I just want to be a retainer. I just love that.
So Robert's saying a bot.
A bot, yeah.
I think real. I think that's a real person.
I seem to remember. I think I remember this. Sadly, I think somebody tweeted it, and then lots of people copied and pasted the tweet, and then it was repeated a load of times. No.
So is it a bot or a real
So
person?
I think it was a bot, and then I think a lot of people.
2 for bots, 2 for real people. It is a bot.
Oh.
It is we are the 52% at the real percent 6.
Oh. There's a lot of percentages in that.
Yeah.
So that's all I've got for you. All I can say is be vigilant. Facebook takes down billions. You heard that right. Billions of fake accounts every year. Twitter takes down hundreds of millions. Don't let them perpetuate. Don't engage with them. Report, report, report. And also, if I can just do one last thing, Don, my nephew was just born about an hour ago. So happy birthday to Hudson. You're 0 today.
Cheers, Kyle. So bot or not? Not easy to spot a bot.
No.
Yeah, difficult. Yeah. But do you block? Do you mute? What do you do?
It depends. It depends on what it is that they're actually saying. Sometimes it's nobody is owed my or your access. Yeah. You are not owed access to me or to anybody else. So I can make a choice whether I want to give you that access or not. Sometimes it is just more satisfying when you're having an altercation. To mute them so that they can just scream into the void.
Yeah.
And then they don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't even know. So you know that it's burning inside. That they're just running it around in their head. And then other times, actually just the block button is easier for you because sometimes what they're saying, it's not always about you seeing it, it's about your following seeing that. and that it's damaging.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, 100%. I mean, the funniest thing that happened to me, I blocked somebody. And I mean, I blocked loads of people, but the specific person that I blocked then sent me an email saying, "Oh, you blocked me." Like, they were sad and offended. I'm like, well, you shouldn't be so rude.
Horrible. Yeah.
If you weren't so rude, then I wouldn't block you. But so on balance, Otto, do you think social media is a force for good or a force for evil?
So, that is a huge question, isn't it? I mean, you know, I don't really get trolled very much, but then I'm a white, straight, middle-aged guy, you know, and I do think they troll and target people who aren't like me quite so much. Do you know what I mean? And
like me and Davina.
Yeah, they go after, but they do. I mean, you see these people troll and troll and troll. People like Diane Abbott as well, you know. Like the nastiest memes and stuff. So social media has been a huge force for good in my life because it's turned me into, you know, it's given me a career essentially. Yeah. So I do see a huge amount of good. I do see, it's also a human circus, isn't it? You know, all elements of life are out there, and it doesn't people talk a lot about how bad it is. There is a lot of good on social media. There's a lot of funny stuff. There's a lot of communication. I say Twitter is basically a massive warehouse with about 1 million rooms in it, and you can open the door in some of those rooms and people are having a laugh, or they're talking about history, or they're talking about obscure bits of, you know, biology or science or something like that. And then there's this very noisy party going on in the hall, which is morons.
Yeah. And Robert, do you agree with that? That do you think it's a force for good or a force for evil?
I think I don't think you could possibly define it as one or the other. It's certainly, you know, my own personal experience, and it very much depends who you follow. I mean, I follow the nerdiest, most extraordinary scientists and engineers from all over the world who I would not be able to have contact with. You know, and this is working very much in the field that I'm interested in renewables and batteries and battery technology. So I follow people who discuss battery chemistry at an incredibly granular level. Now, there's not a lot of trolling going on in that particular world, you know, because it is, as Otto was saying, you know, I'm an old dull white man, you know, heterosexual, boring. I mean, what are you going to say to me? You know, I do occasionally get a tweet that just goes, "You're old, bald, and ugly." You know, well, you're just stating some basic facts. You know, so what?
Sorry about that, Robert.
Yeah, it was you, Otto.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I certainly don't suffer, and I know plenty of people who've had, you know, who've gone off Twitter because they've just been, you know, drowning in just the most vile filth and horrible threats and that stuff. So, I mean, I can understand that, but what I use it for effectively is a research tool. And for that, it's really good. I don't use Facebook at all, I'm afraid. I never have anything to do with it. But I use Twitter and YouTube, obviously, and Instagram and things like that. But not, you know, it's been mostly good for me.
Yeah, and I think it's true. I think what makes Twitter and social media in general great is also what makes it not so great. You know, you have access to people, that's great sometimes. You have access to people that's also can be very damaging. And, you know, on that line, we're all going to be coming out of lockdown very, very soon. The government has said, you know, that, you know, everybody can have their freedom. And the thing is, will it be the Great Gatsby or will it be the Great Depression? You know, will there be people who have been locked in their homes for a year, coming out? Will there people be socially awkward now who weren't socially awkward before? Will people who have suffered from severe mental health issues, will that now have gotten worse? I mean, we've seen evidence that it has gotten worse. So I think social media has a role to play in that too, and how they've made people feel. And I just wonder, what do you think coming out of lockdown, Davina, is going to be? Are you looking forward to it or not?
I mean, my job requires being with people, you know, having people in front of me, and them hopefully having a good time, otherwise I don't work. So I can't wait for you know, everything to get back to as much normality as is possible. You know, I don't think this is going away anytime soon, so I understand that there will be some restriction of some form for a good while. And actually, I'm totally fine with that. You know.
Well, you've got this amazing song, haven't you? I mean, you've got a great voice. I mean, you're going to be on Chicago.
I am.
Have I broken the news? Am I allowed to say that?
No, you're allowed
Am
to
I allowed
say,
to say
yeah,
that?
I'm going to be in Chicago.
Exclusive. So you're going to be on Chicago, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I auditioned through lockdown, and I'm taking the role of Mary Sunshine. And it's the first time that they've announced somebody playing Mary Sunshine, which if you haven't seen the show, come and see it, and then you'll understand why.
Do you want to give us a little bit of a taste? I mean, we're going to play your song that went viral, but give us a little. You want to give us a little taster?
So the song from Chicago goes. And carries on like that.
No, with like no warm up, just straight in. You need an audience. You need an audience, girlfriend. Fantastic. And what if we've got your song that went viral lined up? What if we can play that and we can have a listen to that too?
We are the Frock Destroyers. Bag of chips is stunning, bag of chips is class, bag of chips is sexy, she takes it up the bag of puss is burning, the lady's not for turning, so come take off your sweater, cause that is much better, 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 better. I don't wanna see you, baby, I don't wanna talk to you, cause I'm a superstar, so let's B-R-E-A-K breaker.
Ooh, you see what you like, DDC keep it tight, you know I'm rocking it right, true. I came to love, not to fight. But the gloves are off, it's time to say goodnight, goodnight, goodnight.
I don't wanna see you, baby, I don't wanna talk to you. I don't even need you, baby, I know what I wanna do. I've had enough of this ride, I've spent enough of my time. What I'm about to say will blow your mind. I wanna break up, bye-bye. Maybe I'll see you in the next life. Don't wanna make up, tell you why. Cause I'm a superstar, so let's B-R-E-A-K break up. Officially been Frock Destroyed. Break up.
Well, I can't wait to come and watch you. I'm going to be there in the front row, I'm telling you. So where can people do that? Just go online?
Yeah, go online, search Chicago on tour, and I'm in, all being well, you know, as long as restrictions are, you know, all of that stuff, then I'll be in September, October and November in the tour.
Woohoo, fantastic. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Excited.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Otto, what are you going to be doing after lockdown? What are you looking forward to?
I've got a book coming out.
Oh, okay.
Next month.
What's your book?
Fake History. Challenging fake history.
Wow. Challenging that
That's what it says on the tin,
you
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so I'm recording. Well, I've got the audio book as well, which I'm recording next week, and the book comes out on June the 10th. Yeah.
Brilliant. Because didn't you do something for Byline, actually? You did a little sort of montage of who Boris Johnson...
Yes, a video,
A video of
so,
that.
So actually, the first chapter of my book pretty much demolishes Boris Johnson's book on Churchill.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to go... It's his birthday, actually, next month, so I'm going to take him a copy and... Maybe try and knock on the gates down the street.
So you're going to upset Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson?
I seek to upset as many people as I can.
I think I really like you, Otto.
Well, thanks.
So, I think we might even play your clip, actually. I think we might play your clip of Boris. I think that'd be great.
Boris Johnson isn't a politician. He's a populist, and populists are really celebrities.
Now, of course, you're here really to find out just how good a driver you are, I guess.
Yeah, I have an idea about that.
You might think you know him. Lovable, affable, fun-loving, zip-wire riding Boris. In reality, he's much more complex and deeply flawed than the fun-loving Boris of the popular imagination. From school, Boris Johnson goes on to Oxford University, proper man of the people stuff. And there he becomes part of the so-called Bullingdon Club, which is like an elite dining group full of rich, pampered boys. And their modus operandi is to go out to restaurants, get incredibly drunk, eat fine food, and then smash the entire place up. The following morning, they return and chuck money at the problem and walk away. And nothing's changed since.
So you're exposing Boris quite rightly. Do you think people are going to pay attention to that and dribble? No.
So the problem with Boris Johnson, you know, people used to say Tony Blair was Teflon Tony, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever substance, I mean, maybe Robert with his expertise in those matters, chemical or whatever, whatever matter Boris Johnson is made out of, it's a new type of Teflon because that man has got so much baggage, a history of lying that would put anybody else to shame. In any other normal career, Boris Johnson would have been knocked down years ago. And I feel like he's some sort of, do you know what he's like? He's like one of those Skittles, like in a travelling fun fair.
Oh, the ones that
where you, however many things you throw at him, you could throw a truck at those Skittles and they're not going to even shift. I find it deeply depressing, and I do blame a lot of the other media, and I blame other people for just not holding this man to account. I think it's outrageous that he's become Prime Minister in the same way that it was outrageous that Donald Trump became President of the United States.
I mean, Robert, why? I mean, I'm not asking you to get into Boris Johnson's head, Robert, but like, why what do you think Boris is made of, and why do you think nothing sticks to him?
I mean, it's not a mystery, in fact. It's boring British white history. It's the white working class that love a toff, and they'll always vote for a toff, and that doesn't matter. And there was a period we went through a short period of history where toffs were sort of denigrated and ridiculed, and that period is over. So we're now ruled by people who basically all went to the same school, not even the same type of school, the same school. It is quite extraordinary, and an annoying, know-all, educated, stroppy, middle-class pillocks like me who argue against the brutality, the supreme kind of scummishness of the Bullingdon classes. And I grew up in Oxford. I was witness to their vile attitudes to the rest of us. I mean, they do think we are subhuman scum, and they don't mind saying it. And if you're a working class white person, you still vote for him, even though he cannot stand you. He hates you, and you still vote for him. And pillocks like me trying to argue against it are wasting our breath. And I will not call, he's Mr. Johnson. He's our Prime Minister. I will not use the B word. It really gets on my nerves that people go, oh, B, you know, I'm not going to say it. It's vile. It makes him acceptable in his lies and his deceit and his two double standards. The backhanders that man is getting are off the scale. You know, we know a tiny little bit about him, tiny little bit. I know some file gossip I don't even want to talk about because it's hearsay and nonsense.
But Robert.
Airtime.
You know, I won't tell anyone.
I think, the one little, if you look on his Wikipedia page, if you look on his Wikipedia page, children. On mine it says children, 2. I've got 2 children. On his it says 6 or 8.
Yeah. I
mean, that's extraordinary.
But why is it then? Why is it that you say people, working class people, like a toff? Why? I don't understand that mentality. I mean, I was born in London. You know, I don't understand. I don't come from a small town. I don't understand. Why is it that working class people look up to a toff? Why?
So, let's return to Jacob Rees-Mogg briefly, and what I did all those years ago when I briefly impersonated him. If I tweeted out some pointless Latin phrase, which I would do every now and then, the people who believed it was him thought it was all incredibly smart and clever and funny. See, it wasn't. It was me in Lewisham looking up a joke Latin phrase and putting it on Twitter. So a lot of it's a bit like an act. Well, it's not a bit like an act. It's acting. These people are acting. And they went to this extremely privileged, all of them went to extremely privileged public schools, as I did actually, And I think that's another thing. I can spot those people, I understand them, and I can see right through them.
But Otto, they're not really that bright, right? I mean,
No,
their access and their privilege gets them into positions of power.
That's it.
Not their brains or their intelligence or their hard work. And this is the myth that I think needs to be busted. That, you know, working class people work really hard for their money. And I always remember the trade union war where it said, you know, to make the rich work harder, you pay them more. To make the poor work harder, you pay them less. And I always remember that. And I just think, well, but we're down this rabbit hole. So how do we get out of this rabbit hole?
Well, what Robert was saying there about pointing out these people and also, you know, toppling these people from their plinths. You know, people have got to repeatedly point out just what you said. They're not that smart. They're not that clever. Calling out these lies. I mean...
But you can't topple them because they'll say, well, they're going to ban protests. They're going to say they're going to stop you from voting because you have to bring photo ID. They're going to make sure that they have elections in the middle of winter so nobody comes out to vote. Yeah. So every time you go to stand up against this authoritarian, racist government, not just in the UK but around the world, they will come up with other measures to limit your ability to participate in a democratic process. That's what happens.
And they play the victim as well.
Oh,
That's
totally.
That is the other really bizarre thing. These extremely rich and privileged people with all this power, and the Tories act like they're the opposition. They've been in power for 11 bloody years.
Because you're being too woke. Oh, really?
On the radio today, who was I listening to? LBC, what's she called? Delaney, Sheila Delaney.
Okay.
She's talking to a Tory politician and she's saying, you need to talk to him, and he's going, oh, you don't need to be so hard with me, Sheila. I'll get on the phone and I'll speak to him. He's a good friend of mine. I'll talk to him. And that's how this works. It's about being friends with somebody and then saying, oh, can you do this for me because I'm your friend?
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you my chalet in Marbella over the summer if you'll do this for me. It's the back scratching. For me, growing up in a little northern town, I mean, I don't know what this thing about is people with posh accents. For me, most of the people that I grew up with who spoke like that were thick as a short plank. Like, absolutely could not, without, you know, their Latin dictionary in front of them, string a sentence together. So, for me, I am just completely at a loss for why anybody would think that anybody like that is...
So is it a bias? Do we have is there a bias? Is there a sort of a cultural bias that you think if somebody speaks Latin that they must be better than you?
Yeah.
You think that if they speak with a posh accent, they must be better than you rather than a bit of Cockney or, do you know what I mean, you've got a Birmingham or Mancunian accent. Is that what it is? Is there a cultural bias that's unconscious that we suffer from?
It's deep-rooted in British society, and it's hammered into people. And it goes back to all that empire stuff as well. This stuff was hammered into generations. The people who spoke with RP accents, who went to those expensive schools, they were born to lead, they had a right to lead, and that therefore they will lead. And again, what Robert was saying earlier about that short period of time, actually again after Blair came in, where these people, you know, they're gone. And like, I remember the freshness of that era when you thought those people have been toppled, basically. They're not coming back. And then they've all bounced back.
But why don't we teach people to lead then in schools? I mean, Divina, you go into schools, you're working with BT on this project for people that are going into job interviews. And I quite like sort of your attitude, what you've said. I mean, tell everybody a bit about that project.
Yeah, it's for my sort of role within the BT Skills project is it's about recognising who you are and actually that you as an individual are bringing something different to what everybody else is, and that is worth something to an employer, you know. And then once you've got the interview, well, behave like you've got the job, because you can do the job, otherwise they wouldn't have given you the interview. You wouldn't be there in the first place. I think the question about why do we not teach children and young people leadership skills in schools is because it's not in the interests of the current government to do that. Because if you give those children those skills, and actually then you look at who is in charge, you go, well, wait a minute, this is not good. These people are not fit to lead us. They couldn't lead anything, you know, never mind a country.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fascinating, isn't it, that Robert, you were talking about, you know, our current Prime Minister. If you were to get that CV in front of you, you know, there's no way they'd get an interview, would they? Really?
No. I mean, it is very hard not to equate the really firmly entrenched class system in this country, because that's really kind of at the bottom of it all is this incredible granite edifice, which is our class system, and the absolute foundation stones of that. And this is no criticism, Otto, but is the private education system in this country. And it was the biggest sin of the 1945 Labour government, who came in on a massive landslide, that they didn't quite. They were easily had enough power then to outlaw private schools, but a lot of them went to private schools, just like Blair had enormous leverage in government, could have said, okay, we're going to close down all the private schools, all the religious schools, and everyone has a state education, you know. And what would happen then is all the mithering, stroppy, middle-class parents who would normally send their children to private school will suddenly be outside the gates of every comprehensive in the country demonstrating, going, we want more money, we want a better education system. And the countries that only have a state education system, Norway being a very good example, don't have the same class issues. Got plenty of other problems, but they don't have this ridiculous caste system that we are still lumbered with. And my voice, my mother was posh middle class, so she taught, I should really be talking like that, like all my friends did at school. That's how they sounded, because that's where they come from, rural Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. I shouldn't be talking posh like I do. My mum literally physically punched me if I said Severn instead of seven. You know, that's how I was brought up.
So, I mean, that's really interesting. So you went to private school?
Yeah, so I mean, so again, I think that was also why I was quite good at impersonating Jacob Rees-Mogg. Because I didn't go to a school as posh as Eton, but I did go to a boarding school at roughly the same time. So there were Jacob Rees-Moggs and Boris Johnsons throughout my school. And people would go, oh, they're brilliant. Oh, he's so clever. But actually, if a lot of people tell you you're brilliant, you kind of become brilliant. And if you've gone to one of the most expensive schools in the country, if you've gone to Eton, you're already, as I said in that video, actually, you're an elite within an elite within an elite. You're at the very pinnacle. And you're imbued with this sense of entitlement and power. And you're made to believe that you rule the fucking earth, you know. And that's... that happened at my school to some extent. I have to say, I mean, I wasn't like a rebel without a cause, but by the time I was 17 or 18, my mother had come from a very working class background, and this was during the 80s, and my family were coal miners and things like that.
So did they want you to have, did they deliberately put you into a
Well, no, my father had, I won't tell you my life story, but my parents were very happily married, very unsnobbish, middle class people. But my mother had come from this background. She was like the sixth child of seven in this Staffordshire pit village, and going and visiting my grandparents and my aunts and uncles during that period, I did see both worlds. Do you know what I mean? Not that there are only two worlds in England either, but I did see both worlds, and I did become quite political. Not in I was actually a member of the SDP when I was 18, but I became even that was considered radical, because literally everybody around me was a Tory, you know, for the age of 12. And that I sort of went off on my own path after that. So I'm not embarrassed about it. I didn't choose which school I went to. You don't choose your
we're not trying to embarrass you. We're just trying to get into getting into.
So that's it with Boris and Jacob and those people. As I say, in my school there were people just like that. And so when I look at Boris Johnson or Jacob Rees-Mogg, I can see right through them. I can see them as boys. And they are eternal schoolboys. I mean, I know Westminster well as well, and that is like a private school.
What hurts them, Otto?
Well, okay, so I think E.M. Foster said private schools create people with well-developed bodies, fairly developed minds, underdeveloped hearts. Nothing. That's why Boris Johnson treats everyone around him with contempt. Because if you are sent off to a boarding school when you're 7, you have got a...
That's kind of depressing.
It's super depressing. I don't want you to feel sorry for Boris Johnson.
No, I don't. I know I feel sorry for us.
Yeah, there's a
There's
little lost boy in there who was sent off to boarding school when he was 7, who has built up an army around him, but who also thinks that he's entitled to run the world. That's a very, very dangerous combination. Yeah. And as you were saying earlier, they treat working class people or even middle class people with utter contempt. These are people these people who inhabit this world of the upper class inhabit a totally different universe to the rest of us.
Yeah. Their lived experience is completely different. I mean, we need a whole show and program to talk about how to pierce that undeveloped heart.
If everyone buys my book.
What's the name of your book, Otto?
Fake History. I'll be wearing a t-shirt.
But I mean, it's been a fascinating. I can't believe the time has gone so quickly.
So quick.
It's been a fascinating discussion. Robert, we can talk about electric cars and batteries and also renewable energies, hydrogen, blue hydrogen, grey hydrogen, green hydrogen, what's the future of the world? I mean, climate change is something that I think we have to discuss and talk about if we want the world to survive for the next generation. So thank you so much for coming on. What's the latest project that you're working on, Robert?
Gosh, it's an endless. We produce 2 big shows a week and a podcast, and often little other spin-offs. So it's non-stop. I can't even remember. We're doing a lot of stuff about tire particulates, wind turbines, and software that runs the grid.
Oh wow! Oh yes.
And some cars as well.
Brilliant. Yes, we need to talk about that. I mean, I think wind turbines are beautiful. I know some people think they're ugly. I think they're actually beautiful. But yes, well, thank you so much for joining me today on a Byline's show. And don't forget, that people can be a patron and join up. And Otto, who went to private school, thank you so much.
Get out.
Thank you so much for
bringing some class.
For bringing some
much needed class.
Much needed class to the show, and with your undeveloped hearts. Thank you so much. Good luck with your book. What's
Thank
it
you
called
very
again?
much.
Huh? What's the book called again?
It's called Fake History.
Fake History.
Yes, I'll repeat it a few more times as the credits roll.
Just remember to send it me.
Thank you so much.
I'll put it on my social.
Thanks.
And Divina, I mean, it has been a blast.
Yeah.
I
don't think I've been so quiet for such
a
long time.
I know, I can't believe it. It's like, what is that about?
Like I was desperate to go, oh, well, the academy system isn't going to help us make things fairer. Neither are the grammars. But I just kept quiet, didn't I?
You did, I know. I think you were just being good. But I actually think you were when you think twice, I actually think you were thinking about your birthday. It is your birthday. And I think we all want to just say, Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Divina. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because of COVID regulations, we can't light the candles.
Light the candles, yeah. Either that or we burn down the studio.
But happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for joining us on your birthday.
I've had a lovely time.
We have been blessed to have you.
And I've been blessed to be here.
And you're going to be in Chicago?
I am. September, October, November. I'm going to be in Chicago on tour.
Brilliant.
So you can find that at Chicago on tour, weirdly enough.
Let's watch it. Let's all go. Let's have a Byline day out and all go and watch Divina in Chicago. Wouldn't that be a blast? And then we can do like an after show thing, but oh yeah, I can see it now. I can visualize it now. It's amazing. So thank you for joining the show today. Don't forget, as I say, you can join on, sign up as a membership, be a patron. Thank you to the crew today and everybody, and Ella and everybody in the crew, and George and Kaylin and Carmel and everybody. I have not been drinking before Guido decides to clip this and put it on and say, oh, she's been drinking. I'm just happy because it's been a great show. So look forward to next week's one. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Robert.